if you're having the friendships now that you kind of want them to understand where you're coming from in terms of your life experiences, which is getting to know people, how are you then doing that without reliving the trauma and triggering yourself?
Well, now I can speak comfortably about it. It's a snapshot of my life, right?
Yeah.
And I can speak about it as something that actually made me the woman I am today. Because through that was a lot of resilience. There was trauma, absolutely. But I also realized that trauma doesn't have to mean that you become crippled by anything in life. And often I see or I hear people go on stories and they stuck. It's like a loop that they stuck in and they can't seem to get out of it. At the end of the day, I suppose we're responsible for how we move forward. And I knew that I needed help and support. I didn't seek it at the time, but I did when I went through another lot of trauma of losing a relationship when I was 4 months pregnant and moving on to single parenthood. I don't know, I started to look and I was like, there's just so many patterns here. There just seems to be so much violence that has been in my life, and I need to go sort that out because I was bringing a child into the world. And I was like, however messed up my head is, I need to make sure it doesn't remain messed up because there's a kid coming. In many ways, I look at my life and I realize my daughter had a big part in saving me or in moving me forward away from that, because I don't know if I would have fully gone and sought the actual help that I needed. Maybe I would have, I don't know, but I knew I was pregnant. The relationship had ended. There'd been violence in that relationship. That was post the bank robbery and hold-up. So I was noticing these patterns of violence, and I was like, why am I attracting this? This is what seems to be coming in my life. I need to figure this out. And so I went and sought counseling and undertook that journey for almost 2 years.
So we've just skipped over a huge couple of things. You mentioned that you were held up at
Yes.
then in bank robbery. What happened?
Well, that was, I had finished uni. It was my first job, actually. My very first job at, I'd had part-time jobs as a teen. You know, you go and do the part-time jobs.
What decade are we in?
We are that was in 1988, I think that happened.
Okay.
Yeah,
so there was a huge amount of bank robberies happening around in the 80s.
Yeah. I graduated uni in 87, landed my first job at the bank in 88. And a few months after, there was a robbery, a hold-up. And I was the person who they put the gun to the head. So there were three of them. One manned the door. One was to the left of me near the customer service counter. I happened to be at the teller counter. There was 2 other women on either side of me. And I suppose the leader of the assailants came to me and put a double-barrel shotgun to my forehead. And,
oh my goodness.
And it was just, hand over the cash. So, of course, they're handing over the cash. So for me, that was, I don't even know. I remember the gun. I can still see that double-barrel shotgun when I think about it. And then they obviously got away. They robbed the bank. A lot of money was lost that day. Bank was closed, and immediately the first thing they did, I will say, is they started to put us in counseling.
Well, that's good. That's good considering in the 80s it wasn't really a
it wasn't
mainstream thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah. They did. So the girl that was next to me, the guy, I will say, there was another teller. He was a guy. He didn't actually take them up on the counseling, and I don't know why. But, my female colleague and I took the counseling and started to work our way through that. But that was, that was months of it. And I remember I didn't sleep for a long time, because every time I closed my eyes, that's what I saw. And that then, led me on to, I had my relationship. There was things I remember being quite, I don't know, it felt like I was kind of just floating through life. You're floating through with no real purpose. All the dreams that I had, I started to slowly, in my mind, I always wanted to be a novelist and a writer. But once I worked at the bank, I did leave the bank soon after that. I will say I left the bank. I went to another bank, but it was in a completely different role. A role came up around customer service and EFT help center service. So I was in a role where I was not customer facing, where I was never ever going to be exposed to another bank robber. So it was a help center. You worked your shift work, and I did that role for a number of years. But I deliberately chose a role that meant I was never going to be facing any kind of threat in that way. Now, who's to say, But in my mind, I'm working every day with my colleagues. We're in this help center, and we're hidden away, and we're on the phone all day with the customers, and we're supporting them that way. And I climbed my way through that role to a leadership role. But I remember, feeling quite lost, and perhaps even the relationship I ended up in was also as a result of not dealing with certain things, because I attracted violence again in my life through the partner.